didn't think. I just didn't want him to get hurt.
You took that bullet from me?
She was just the waitress until she risked everything for the man she was supposed to serve. Don't scroll. Subscribe to see the obsession he unleashed next. Naomi is in the dimly lit back hallway of the Jade Room. She's exhausted, leaning against the wall checking her phone. Naomi had rent to pay, and a landlord who didn't take "I'm tired" for an answer. She should have gone home, but Table 12 just ordered another round of the most expensive wine on the menu. Naomi steps into the main room. She approaches a shadowed corner booth where Dante sits with his associates. Dante Moretti wasn't just a guest. He was the shadow that owned the district. Everyone in the restaurant moved with fear when he arrived. Everyone except Naomi. She just saw a man who tipped in cash and never looked up. Naomi notices a man standing by the side entrance, half shadowed by a neon Seoul street light outside. It was the way he stood, too rigid, hand hidden inside his jacket. Naomi had spent enough nights in the city to know when a storm was coming. She saw the muzzle of the gun before anyone else did. Naomi lunges. The muzzle flash lights up the room. She knocks into Dante's shoulder as the bullet tears through her arm. She didn't think. She didn't calculate. She just moved. In that 1 second, the life of a waitress collided with the life of a king. Dante is on the floor, pinning his suit jacket to Naomi's arm to stop the bleeding. He is staring into her eyes, breathless. Dante Moretti had been shot at, betrayed, and hunted. But no one had ever bled for him. Looking at Naomi, he didn't see a waitress anymore. He saw the only thing in the world he had to keep. Naomi saved a man who makes people vanish for a living. Would you be brave enough to bleed for a monster? Subscribe now to find out if she survives his gratitude. Dante hauls Naomi into his arms as sirens wail in the distance. He stares at the approaching flashing lights, but refuses to flag them down. The ambulance was 2 minutes away, but Dante knew that in this city, a public hospital meant police reports, questions, and Naomi being left unprotected. He didn't want an emergency room. He wanted a sanctuary. Naomi is laid on a crisp white bed in a high-tech private clinic. A Korean doctor works under sleek, warm lighting. Dante watches from the doorway, jaw tight. Money usually bought people off, but for Dante, money was the shield he built around her. He didn't care about the cost of the private medical team or the secure wing. He only cared that when she woke up, she was breathing in his air. Naomi's eyes flutter open. She sees silk sheets and a ceiling made of glass. She tries to sit up, winces, and looks at her arm, neatly bandaged in expensive gauze. When Naomi woke up, the throb in her arm was a dull echo. The Jade Room felt like a nightmare from a different life. This room was too soft, too quiet. The scent of bergamot and smoke was her only clue that the monster who held her pulse was near. Dante is sitting in a corner chair, shirt unbuttoned, showing a glimpse of a tattoo on his collarbone. He stands and walks toward her bed. "You should have let me die," he said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. Naomi looked at the man who owned the district and didn't see a monster. She saw a man who was terrified. He owed someone a debt he couldn't simply pay in cash. Dante reaches out, his finger tracing the edge of her bandage without touching her skin. He looks up into her eyes. "I don't do charity, Naomi, and I don't let my people bleed for nothing." He leaned closer until they shared the same air. "Tell me your name again. I want to make sure I never forget the person who owns me now." He calls her his savior, but look at his eyes. Is he protecting her, or has he just found his new favorite possession? She was the only one who didn't fear him, and now she's the only one he can't let go. Like this video if you believe Naomi should run while she still can. Naomi waited until the room stopped spinning. The second time she opened her eyes, she didn't see Dante. Just sunlight bleeding through floor-to-ceiling glass and a view that stole what little breath she had left. Endless city lights, stacked into the sky, traffic flowing far below like veins. She pushed herself upright, teeth clenched against the ache in her arm. No beeping monitors, no nurses' chatter, no plastic privacy curtains. Just a minimalist room in shades of cream and charcoal, a vase of stark white flowers, and a door that looked thick enough to hold back a riot. Her bare feet hit soft rug instead of cold tile. IV stand. Fresh water. A folded set of dark lounge clothes on a nearby chair with a handwritten note. Change when ready. Naomi crossed slowly to the door, her hospital gown rustling. She turned the handle. It didn't move. A shadow shifted on the other side. A low male voice, polite but final. Bodyguard. Miss Cole? Mr. Moretti asked that you stay inside until he speaks with you. Her heart lodged somewhere between anger and dread. Am I a patient or a prisoner? No answer. Just the sound of a man standing at attention. The door finally opened 10 minutes later, not to a nurse, but to Dante. This time, he wasn't in the perfect suit. Gray shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, top buttons undone. Still sharp, but less like a CEO, and more like a man who'd been awake all night. He closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded a lot like a lock sliding home. Is this where you tell me the bill was too high, so you're keeping me as collateral? He actually huffed out a quiet breath, too dry to be a laugh. The clinic belongs to me. There is no bill. Naomi, then open your door. I'll get out of your way. He stepped closer, and she realized how big he really was. Not just tall, present. The kind of man who bent rooms around him. You stepped in front of a bullet meant for my head. That makes you my responsibility. Until I know who ordered it, this is the safest place for you. Naomi's jaw clenched. I'm not one of your men. You don't get to handle me. No, I don't. That's why this is complicated. He moved toward the window, gesturing at the sprawling city. Down there, people already know a shot was fired at me. They'll ask how you survived a hit targeting me, and why. You go home, they follow you, they use you, or they finish what he started. He turned back, eyes colder now. You can hate my world, Naomi, but you can't pretend you aren't inside it now. Her breath hitched, not from the pain, from the truth. Later, Naomi sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, the city skyline painting faint shapes on the walls. Voices leaked under the door, Dante's, and someone else's. She inched closer, careful not to tug her stitches, and pressed her ear to the gap where door met frame. We traced the shooter to a mid-level crew. He wasn't freelance. Someone paid him to walk into your place. Who knew I'd be there with that table? Only us, the owner, and the 3 bosses you met with last week. Then one of them just made a very expensive mistake. There was a pause. Marco swallowed loudly enough that Naomi could hear it. Close their lines. Freeze their ports. I want every drop of money they touch to turn to dust. And Marco, yeah, boss? The owner of the restaurant? His family is under my protection now. He didn't pull the trigger. He loses nothing, except his fear. Naomi hugged her knees, the weight of it settling in. Her one reckless act had just set off an invisible war. Morning washed the room in pale gold. Naomi woke to find a neat stack of clothes laid out, soft black joggers, a loose white tee, a simple sweater. Nothing fancy, just new. A knock. This time Dante waited for her answer. May I come in? She almost said no just to prove she could. But her arm throbbed, and she was tired of being surprised. Door's already yours. He stepped in with a tray, fresh fruit, congee, a cup of coffee that smelled expensive enough to pay a bill. Eat. Your body used more blood than it should have. She took the coffee purely on instinct. One sip almost made her forgive him. I still need to go home. I know. Your landlord has been paid 3 months ahead. Your job at the Jade Room is secure. The manager will tell anyone who asks that you're on medical leave after a kitchen accident. Her stomach sank. You've been in my house? I've been in your file, not your house. I don't cross lines I can't redraw. He sat in the chair opposite her bed, like they were in a negotiation instead of a recovery room. You can walk away from me when this is over. I'll even give you a severance for your trouble. But until I know my enemies don't see your face when they think of mine, you stay where my people can protect you. And where would that be? Dante, here. My building has more security than any hospital, and my enemies are afraid of my elevator. She stared at him over the rim of the cup. You talk like you own the whole sky. He met her gaze without flinching. I own everything that tries to put a bullet through my heart. Right now, that includes you." Her pulse skipped for reasons that had nothing to do with blood loss. He paid her rent, hid her name, and walled her inside a tower with the best view in the city. Is this protection, or just a prettier kind of prison? If someone saved your life and you locked them away for their own safety, would you still call yourself the good guy? Naomi's arm hurt less. Her questions hurt more. A flat screen on the wall, muted until now, suddenly flickered to a local news channel. The remote wasn't near her. Someone had turned it on from outside. Banner: brazen restaurant shooting, no casualties, suspect in custody. Security camera stills of the Jade Room flashed, blurry frames of chaos, a muzzle flash, faces blurred. Naomi's chest tightened as she recognized her silhouette, lunging, then going down. They never mentioned her name. They called her a staff member who acted quickly. No one mentioned the man in the corner booth either. Dante stepped into view beside the TV, arms folded across his chest, gray shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow, flame of a tattoo curling up one wrist. They're reporting like it was random. That's how I wanted it reported. He picked up the remote, lowered the volume. The less they say about you, the better. Enemies shoot what they can see. Her throat went dry. You made them erase you, too. I never exist on the evening news, Naomi. That's how I've stayed alive long enough to owe you my life. Later that day, Dante insisted she get dressed. He'd had a courier deliver a small wardrobe of comfortable, simple clothes. Soft sweaters, dark jeans, silk lounge sets. You've been lying down long enough. Come see something. He waited outside the door while she changed into the soft clothes he'd provided. When she stepped out, he didn't look surprised, like he already knew her exact sizes from a file he'd accessed. The elevator let them out onto a lower floor of the same tower. Another suite, this one more like a sleek minimalist boardroom with a long, polished black table and a wall-mounted screen displaying complex charts. This was the front for his empire. Inside, the owner of the Jade Room, Mr. Han, stood up so fast his chair almost toppled. Middle-aged, Korean, suit just a little less perfect than Dante's, his face etched with worry. His eyes flickered to Naomi, then away, like he'd been told not to stare. Miss Cole, I wanted to thank you. My wife, my daughters. They said you were an angel that night. He bowed again, to her, not to Dante. Naomi's cheeks burned. I just moved. Anyone would have. Dante's gaze sharpened, as if that answer offended him. He never took his eyes off Mr. Han. Not anyone. You? He slid a folder across the polished black table toward Mr. Han. Your lease has been cleared for the next 5 years. The men who were pressuring you for protection money? They won't bother your restaurant again. Your debt is mine now. Boss, that's... Correction. Your debt was never yours. It belonged to the fools who thought they could use your floor to send me a message. They chose wrong. Mr. Han's eyes shone with a mix of gratitude and terror. He looked at Dante as if he were a god. Focus on the food, Han. Make it exceptional. I'll handle the wolves. Naomi watched the exchange, stomach cold. Dante's protection didn't just hold her. It wrapped itself quietly, menacingly around everyone connected to that night, like a spider's web woven around his newly claimed territory. Later that day, Naomi found herself alone in the spacious living area, watching the sunset bleed across the Seoul skyline. The door clicked. This time it was Marco. Marco carried 2 cups of tea, steam curling in the cool air. He placed one on the side table, far from any medical equipment. This wasn't a hospital after all. He asked me to check on you. He's busy. Naomi didn't have to ask doing what. But she did anyway. What does busy mean when a man like Dante says it? It means he's making sure the people who pointed that gun at you will never point one again. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. Naomi imagined the phone calls, the quiet threats, the livelihoods burned to ash, the wheels of Dante's vengeance turning. You're all insane. Maybe. But the people who came into that restaurant willing to kill in front of families, they're worse, and he's not going to let them think they can miss and walk away. He paused, looking at her with an intensity that reminded her of Dante. You know he hasn't left this building since they brought you here, right? Her eyebrows shot up. What? Every call, every order, every meeting, done from upstairs. He won't step back onto the street until he knows there's no one left aiming at you, too. The idea of a man like Dante confining himself anywhere for someone else's safety did something ugly and complicated to her chest. It wasn't love, it was ownership. But for the first time, she saw the sheer, terrifying scale of his protection. The next morning, Naomi tested the silk cage. Dante had told her she could walk away when this is over, but he hadn't defined over. Men like him rarely did. Her arm throbbed dully, a constant reminder of the bullet that had put her here. She dressed in the soft loungewear he'd provided, pulled on the comfortable slippers, and when she heard the faint click of a door closing down the hall, she slipped out of her suite. The hallway was wide, gleaming with polished wood and minimalist art. A shadow of a man in a suit stood at the far end, facing the elevator, her silent guardian. She walked toward the elevator. The doors opened before she pressed anything. Dante stood inside. No suit jacket. Dark gray shirt, sleeves rolled. That damned red and black flame tattoo burning up his right forearm like a warning flare. Going somewhere? She lifted her chin, her resolve hardening. You said I could walk away. You said I could walk away when it was safe. I need to know when that is. It isn't. Not yet. You can't keep me here forever because I did one stupid, noble thing, stepping out of the elevator, blocking her path without touching her. Noble? That's what you call it? He came closer, and she smelled that same mix of smoke and something expensive. You changed the way my enemies can reach me. If they think any waitress can throw herself in front of me and live, they won't just come for me next time. They'll come for you to send a message back. So this is my fault now? His gaze softened just enough that it hurt. It's not fault. It's physics. You stepped into my line of fire. Now you're in my orbit. That doesn't change because you wish it did. The elevator chimed impatiently behind him. He didn't look. Go back to bed, Naomi, or come upstairs and eat something that didn't come on a tray. But don't walk out that door until I tell you no one is waiting on the other side. Her hands curled into fists. Do you hear yourself? Every word. He stepped aside, not to let her past, but to give her the illusion of choice. It was almost worse than being grabbed. She stared at the open elevator, then at the heavy, secure front door at the end of the hall, then back at him. She knew that door led out, not up. She turned and walked toward the private stairs that led up to the penthouse, to him. She hated herself for the relief she felt. She tried the door and found him waiting in front of it, not with chains, but with reasons. Is he saving her life? Or just wrapping his own fear around her like silk? If someone saved your life and you locked them away for their own safety, would you still call yourself the good guy? Naomi spent the next 3 days confined to the penthouse, but the boundaries subtly began to shift. The surveillance didn't stop. She was aware of the silent men guarding the entrance, but Dante started bringing her work. Not her work, he didn't expect her to clean, but his. He brought files into the living room, spreading documents in Korean and English across the coffee table. You saved my life. You have the right to know what kind of life you saved. He needed her help with the English language documents, mostly acquisition paperwork, and contracts with Western firms. Naomi, who had studied business in college before dropping out due to cost, found herself surprisingly good at spotting the loopholes. One afternoon, he brought her a thick folder of acquisition plans for a massive Houston real estate firm. Her eyes widened. Houston? That's where I was born. That's where you were working. This acquisition will secure the ports, a necessary headache. She looked at the proposal, noticing a massive debt listed under environmental cleanup. The numbers here don't add up. They're hiding $5 million in cleanup fees on the old port property. If you acquire this, that debt is yours. Dante leaned back, folding his arms, impressed. Marco spent 3 days on that file. You found it in 10 minutes. I know Houston. That port has been a toxic mess for 20 years. They never disclose the real cost until the contract is signed. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. She hadn't just saved his life. She was saving his empire. The more she worked with him, the more the line between protector and partner blurred. One evening, they were reviewing the security schematics for the building. Naomi shivered, despite the warmth of the room. How many people have you hurt because they tried to hurt you? I've never pulled a trigger unnecessarily. But my line of work is not gentle. He looked at her bandaged arm. You saw what happens when the violence touches the innocent. That is why the cage exists. He sighed, a sound of deep weariness that surprised her. He picked up a ceramic teacup, turning it slowly in his hands. I inherited this. My father built a fortress. He was a ruthless man, but he built it to protect my mother and sister. I took over when he died, not because I wanted the power, but because the structure was the only thing holding them safe. The moment I walked away, someone else would take the territory, and their protection would be gone. Naomi felt a profound softening in her chest. This was the first piece of vulnerability he had ever shown, a confession of responsibility, not ambition. You're trapped by the empire you protect. And now, so are you. But I never wanted the loneliness of it to touch you. She reached out and lightly touched his forearm, right below the edge of his tattoo. Thank you for telling me. The next day, Naomi laid out her terms. She wasn't just walking away. She was defining the relationship. I need to go home. My landlord needs to see me. I need to get clothes. I need to make sure my job at the Jade Room is actually secure. I need to know I'm not a hostage. Dante listened, his expression neutral. I understand the need for autonomy. Then give it to me. I go home for 1 hour. Alone. No guards waiting outside my door. You trust me to come back? He closed his eyes briefly, weighing the risks against the necessity of her compliance. You're asking me to risk everything I just paid to secure. I'm asking you to trust me. The bullet I took was real. The money you spent on my rent was real. I am not a fool. I know what's waiting outside. But if you keep me locked in here, I won't hate the enemy. I'll hate the jailer. He opened his eyes. They were intense, focusing on her as if reading the final chapter of a complex book. Marco will take you. You have 2 hours. He stays in the car. If he loses sight of you, he has orders to seal off the neighborhood until you reappear. No. You trust me, or you keep me locked up. No, Marco. He stood up, walking toward the window. He looked out at the city, at the vast, endless threats he controlled. Very well. You go alone. If you are not back in 2 hours, I will assume the enemy has you, and I will dismantle this district block by block until I find you. Do we have an agreement? We have an agreement. The silent elevator ride down to the main lobby felt like a year. The guards watched her go, confusion on their faces. The front door was unlocked with a quiet click. Naomi stepped out onto the familiar, anonymous city street. She felt the cold freedom immediately. No car waiting, no shadows following, just the noise and chaos of normal life. She hailed a cab to her apartment. The landlord was surprised but placated by the triple rent payment. She grabbed clothes, toiletries, and paid her overdue bills, leaving only a small, manageable debt. With 15 minutes to spare, she walked to a small local coffee shop. She sat, watched people, and realized the immense difference between surviving in the city and living in it. She didn't want to be owned, but she realized she could not go back to being hunted. The silk cage was safer than the alley. She checked her watch. She was late. A black car pulled up to the curb, not Dante's, but similar. Marco stepped out, looking furious and relieved. You're 10 minutes past the deadline. He's already started moving pieces on the board. Get in the car. Now. Did he call you? He didn't have to. You pushed the one boundary he couldn't risk. Naomi got in the car. She looked back at the street she had fought so hard to return to. She knew she was saying goodbye to true freedom, but gaining something else. The security of knowing the most dangerous man in the city would burn it down before he let her go. The ride back was silent and fast. When the elevator opened, Dante was waiting not in the main room, but in the small hallway leading to her suite. His face was pale, his eyes blazing with a cold fury she'd never seen before. You were 10 minutes late. I stopped for coffee. I needed a moment. A moment? Marco said you didn't check in. Do you know what I was planning in that 10 minutes? I was preparing to mobilize every man I have in this city. You put everyone I own at risk. He grabbed her shoulders, not hard, but to hold her still. Don't ever play games with my boundaries again. You are not just risking your life, you are risking the lives of the people who protected us." He released her, taking a deep, shuddering breath. "I trust you. But do not abuse my trust. Get some rest." He walked past her, toward his own private office, leaving the coffee shop bag still clutched in her hand. The thrill of freedom was gone, replaced by the chilling weight of his absolute, terrifying responsibility. She was his. And she had better learn the rules. He punished her delay by showing her the true scale of his fear. Did she finally understand the cost of her own choice? The Jade Room reopened quietly, no ribbon cutting, no newspaper invites. Just warm light, low music, and the clink of glass that sounded like a second chance. Naomi didn't wear the uniform. She wore a simple black dress and flats, a thin bandage still peeking under her sleeve. She didn't come to carry trays. She came to stand exactly where she chose. Mr. Han's wife hugged her, fiercely and quick. Staff bowed to her, awkward at first, and then not at all, like gratitude had found a comfortable home in their bodies. A few regulars recognized her face but didn't know the story. That was the point. Across the room, in the dark glass reflection, Naomi caught a figure seated at the far edge of the bar. Dante's posture was relaxed, but the distance was calculated. Close enough to get to her in 3 seconds, far enough to let everyone forget he was there. She didn't look at him for the rest of the night. When she stepped outside for air, the city hummed like a living thing. A black car idled half a block away and did nothing. The door behind her stayed unlocked. No one followed. It felt like trust with training wheels. She went back in on her own. The debrief didn't happen that night. It came the next morning in a smaller conference suite 2 floors below the penthouse. Marco brought the facts in measured syllables. The 3 who greenlit the hit have no cash flow. Imports frozen, fronts closed, partners silent. They can't move a shoebox without tripping our alarms. Dante leaned against the table, sleeves rolled, the flame on his forearm a quiet brand of intent. Naomi stood beside the window, sunlight running up her arm like a promise. And the shooter? Prison. For something else. He'll stay there. She didn't ask what something else meant. The justice wasn't clean. Nothing with Dante ever was. But she felt the quiver in the web go still. For now. Dante turned to her. "You can go back to your apartment today. Or you can take my offer, new place, new lease, in your name only. No guards inside your walls. I'll pay the first year and never set foot there without an invitation." Her chest tightened. "And if I say no to everything, then I give you a number. If you ever sense danger, you call it. Everything I own moves toward you, and when you hang up, I disappear again." He didn't flinch when he said it. He meant it. That, more than the promises, scared her a little less. Naomi slid a slim folder across the table. "My conditions." He looked amused, and then, when he saw how short it was, impressed. No surveillance inside any address registered to Naomi Cole. No tracking on her phone or devices. Written agreement. She can refuse any meeting, any car, any person in his circle. Consultant, strategy, and language compliance. She chooses projects. A fund for injured service workers administered by a third-party foundation, not his. "You will let me keep a shadow on your street if I feel heat? You'll text me first. If I say no, you stand down unless I call." A partnership isn't a leash. He took a pen, a black matte instrument that looked like it should sign treaties, and signed every page without negotiating the numbers. Then he slid a small matte black keycard across the table. "This opens only one door in my world. The rooftop. No one else has this. Not Marco. Not family. If you ever feel cornered in this building, you go up, not out. I'll find you there." She turned the card over. It was smooth, etched with a discreet symbol she didn't recognize. It felt light and heavy at the same time. "I won't live up there. I didn't ask you to. I'm giving you the only door I can't lock behind you." For the first time since the bullet, something unknotted under her ribs. She tested it the same day. The rooftop wasn't a garden so much as a thought. Clean lines, slate tiles, low planters, the skyline like a living mural on all sides. Wind lifted the hem of her shirt. The bandage tugged along with it, a reminder that bravery had edges. Dante followed at a distance. He didn't touch the rail, didn't block a path. He just stood in the open, sun cutting a clean shape along his shoulders. Why a roof? Because it's the only place that isn't mine. Everything up here is yours, not the air. He said it like a vow and an apology. She walked to the edge, not close enough to make his body flinch, just close enough to see the city breathe. If this was going to be her life for a while, she would pick her vantage points on purpose. The fund for injured workers, already seated. In your name, not mine. Thank you. He looked startled for a breath, as if thanks from her carried more weight than fear from anyone else. They walked a slow circuit. No plan, no agenda, no trap. I can't change what I am. I wouldn't ask you to. I only ask you never put me on the wrong side of it. He breathed out, something like relief crossing his face. Then here are my terms. You never put yourself between me and a bullet again. That wasn't a term. That was a reflex. Then promise me your reflex will be to live. She didn't step back. She didn't step closer. She just tilted her head. Give me one promise back. Name it. If I leave, you open doors. You don't close them. He held her gaze for a long second in which the city disappeared. I'll never lock a door behind you. It landed inside her like a warm stone in cold water. She nodded once. Then you may walk me downstairs, Mr. Moretti. He smiled, real, small, and dangerous, only to the things that wanted her hurt. They took the elevator down, silent, equal, and something like free. He gave her a key to the only door he couldn't lock, and she chose to stay for now. Would you trust a promise from a man like Dante, or would you keep a bag packed by the door?